Welcome to Evolve Your Blueprint,
where we explore the concept of evolving
and discuss our journey as individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds.
Our mission is to bring real conversations,
relate through storytelling,
and empower you to evolve with us. Let's evolve together.
Welcome to Evolve Your Blueprint. And we encourage you to
subscribe,
comment,
and join us in our community.
And we're here again to explore a new different topic with you. And today's topic will be really exploring our life experiences in regards to what's made us grow. So what's made us grow, guys? Or how are you saying it, Alejandro?
What changed you, bro?
What changed you, bro?
Internally, externally, all of that, right? Everything that has helped change and help you grow along your journey of life, right? It's, you know, we get so busy in life. Next thing you know, we're like a lot older. We're married now, all that kind of good stuff. So it's definitely helpful to just see if we can do some self-reflection on what has helped us grow, evolve, get to where we are now.
And I think one of the reasons why we decided to do this particular topic and to again have you all join us together, it was less structured for us, but more so, you know, what is it that we're hoping that you get out of this? And I think the hope is really that as we share our stories, you can think about yours too. And how are you responding to life circumstances, positives, difficulties, and everything in between? Right? Mm-hmm. But for all of you, I guess, what changed you, bro? Like, what is it that you're thinking has changed you, helped you grow, impacted your life? Whether it was something exciting and positive or something difficult that you then had to learn how to grow with.
I can start for us, you know, for myself. I do things a certain way and it works for me in a lot of ways. And so as we were having this conversation about the topic today, we're talking a lot about like, you know, what are the things that help us grow? And for myself, it takes me back to 2022, you know, sharing with you all a little bit earlier today that for me being an entrepreneur, just like how you all, like we have this hustle behind us. And part of this hustle is just like constantly on the go. Like we're thinking of new ideas. We put a lot of our time and efforts into our craft because it means so much to us in a lot of ways. And so in 2022, that's what I was continuing to do. And it was in the middle of, or toward the end of my workday, that I was at my parents' house and my mother was walking our dog and a tragic accident happened. And she had fallen walking our dog and had actually suffered a traumatic brain injury. And it was in that moment in time really where it felt like somebody had picked up my world and flipped it upside down. And it was like something that you almost see on a movie. Like, this isn't supposed to happen to me. This isn't supposed to happen to us. And I remember reaching out to Kaylee and like telling her like, you gotta cancel my clients. Like it goes straight into work mode because that's where my mind had been for all these years. Yeah. And it was sitting in the hospital and being told that like, you know, if your mother can survive, you know, the next like 10 hours, then we're going to be okay. But we don't know until then. And so I can remember coming home from the emergency room and she was going to be admitted that night and sitting at the dinner table and thinking like, oh, this may be the rest of my life forever. She just won't be here. And so as time went on, you know, she's a fighter. So she started to, you know, regain the ability to speak and the ability to talk. But during that time, I had to take a step away from our business. I had to take my social worker, my therapist hat off and be a son for my mom. And what a life-changing opportunity, because it forced me to realize that I am more than my profession. And I just needed to be there as a son and as a human being. And that it was almost like somebody pulled like the emergency brake in a car. And it's just, you almost feel lost in the moment. Yeah. But I think, you know, going back to our last episode of like relationships, having a strong community around me. And now that I look back this is 2 years ago, and, you know, my mother was able to celebrate my wedding. And we have all these happy moments now. There is this sense of a better work-life balance, because for a brief period in time, I got to see that work is not everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for me, that has really changed my perspective on life, the way that I view things. And I think I was telling my wife the other day that like that opportunity allowed me a unique situation, because not many people get to see what is it like not to have a parent for a short period of time and then they come back. Usually when they pass or whatever, they're gone. You've lost your opportunity. But I got to kind of see both worlds in this opportunity. And so now that I'm a newlywed, it gives me that opportunity and this chance to have a better work-life balance in a lot of ways. And that's something that's really helped me grow as a human being, but it's constant practice, because it's easy to go back to old habits of just working and hustling.
Yes. Oh, I love your mom so much. I think Brandon and his family have become like a second family to me. And I don't know, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of your mom. I'm so proud of your family for just really pushing through this and fighting it, and making a comeback. And I think when we look at just our stories, including, you know, whoever's listening to this, there's so much in our life that is unexpected. You know, we can plan and plan and plan, and sometimes life just has other plans, right? And I think it's been the comeback, right? And like you said, Brandon, I think it's sometimes we have lessons in our lives, but we can forget those lessons, and it's almost like we got to go back. And sometimes, you know, life forces you to remember the lessons. But I think for you, I'm so glad that you feel like you have community to be able to remind you, like, no, Brandon, you know, it's also about enjoying. It's also about being a son, being a husband, being a friend. You know, the hustle, work will always be there.
Well, I think what was so interesting too is that, like, I'm very hands-on. Like, I like to get my hands in things and understand and control things, for lack of a better word. And to be like, all right, Kaylee, you do everything. I'm just gonna take a step away. Like, that was a new experience, but a good experience to have, because you build trust in people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being able to lean on people, right? When there's so unexpected things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
The unknown.
And that's even a growing experience, right? To practice leaning on others. I feel like we're helpers, right? So much of our work is to be the lending hand. And I think, for me, I think that there's been a lot of moments, you know, whether it's been being the first in my family to go to college and struggling, really falling into this profession that I didn't really know much about, to just taking leaps on entrepreneurship. I feel like all of those moments required help, but it is a journey to get there.
It's definitely a journey.
So much of like what has helped us grow, what has helped us evolve, right? There's so many different layers. I mean, like Brandon, your story, it's so tragic and it's so rewarding at the same time, right? Like these polar opposite emotions, I'm sure existed.
Yeah.
And you look at, like, you know, especially for all of our audience, you know, those questions of what has helped you grow, what has helped you evolve to where you are now. And you may not find an answer. We were talking about this at lunch. And so, like, we may not find what it is that has helped us grow and evolve, right? And just like that in itself, just being able to live in that, not knowing what was, I'm moving somewhere, I'm flowing, I'm going towards this general area of my life, but not exactly knowing what has helped or what is helping me. That's part of, I think, another skill we can kind of throw in the toolbox, if you will. But it's hard to know sometimes, because even here, as we're prepping for the theme of today, what has helped you grow, and I was going through so many different things. I'm like, all right, what do I feel comfortable sharing? What do I don't? Where do I land with this without compromising parts of myself, making sure all parts of myself have permission or give permission? And it was difficult. I will share this, though. This is something I think right at that kind of young, how old was I? Like 21-year-old age. I was studying abroad. I was studying in school, in undergrad. I was doing a research project there with a professor, and he asked me if I wanted to do the same thing, the research program in abroad. And there was a couple different countries where he had like affiliates or whatever with, right? And he said, yeah, Barcelona, Spain. I'm like, oh, wow. And then it's crazy where I was at that age, right? Where he was like, oh yeah, you get this grant, it's paid for, you got to do research, you put it to your resume. Like, it was a amazing like opportunity. But at that time in my life where I was and my growth, it was very limited, I think, because I didn't see that as an amazing opportunity. I thought that was like, oh, that's not for me. That's not for people that look like me to go abroad. That wasn't for like a thing that I did, right? Where, in my identity. And as I was sharing this to my roommates, my friends in college, they're looking at me like, what, are you crazy? Like, go.
You're tripping.
I'm tripping. And it took my community. And also, like, when I'm talking to my parents, they were scared, right?
Yeah.
They were like, wait, what? You're going to go where? You already in San Diego, which is already far from us.
Yeah.
Now you want to go on the other side of the world? So, but when I was talking to my friends, they were college students, of course, they were like, yes, you should absolutely jump on this. And then that helped me. Well, you're right. This actually could be really cool. It's scary, but it can be really cool. I ended up going for it, and I came back, I think, significantly with a different just mindset of not only the world, but of how I viewed myself. And that was very challenging to do when I was in that process, but it really did significantly help how I viewed myself. And I very much took that and kind of snapshotted that picture, right, and put it in here because I can reference that, and I do still. That this, just because maybe I'm not used to doing it, or maybe not something what I envision myself, has helped me slowly like break up some of the rigidity that maybe I felt of my identity, where I wasn't what I could do.
I feel so proud of that, like 20-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, I think, que
Me too.
muchacho,
You're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, like he didn't know something different, and I think it's cool that even though, when you're saying about your parents, like everyone else, in academia, right, is like, this is amazing. Like, what are you talking about, right? But for our parents, right, like I think my Mexican parents would have the same exact response. Like, ¿cómo? Is it safe? How are you going to be there? Like all these questions, right? But I'm so proud of that 20-year-old you, que dejó, right? He let that opportunity. He held on to it, even if he was like, I don't know what this is going to be about, and I think it's like, sometimes we, like you said, we don't view pleasures and enjoyment as something that we can access. And no sé qué bonito, right? That now you're like, no, I deserve good things, fam. Yes, I do.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Sí, qué bonito. I wish I would have done that.
Same. That's one of the things I regret. And we were talking about this, how in college I came across study abroad opportunity to go to Greece, and I was like, oh, that sounds so amazing. And it was fear, it was financial reasons, and I didn't give myself the opportunity to just do it at that point. But yeah, that's one of the things that I actually regret not doing. Everything else, I feel like I don't regret because it's led me here, obviously, right? But I think traveling for me, one of the things that has changed me and helped me grow in my relationship with myself is to travel by myself. When I first started traveling by myself, a lot of people were like, are you sure? Where are you going? Like all these little things that they were telling me to do, and text me, right? Like all this. And sometimes I can be very careless and just very daring and just go for it, just do it. But I went somewhere where I had been before with someone, so it wasn't completely new. I knew the language too. It was a part of Mexico, so I was like, I'm just gonna go for a couple days, and it really helped me trust myself. It helped me my self-confidence as well, in so many different levels in the relationship with myself. So for me, traveling alone has definitely changed me and has helped me evolve.
In therapy, right, we talk so much about like different parts of us, right, or younger selves. Like right now, when I was mentioning, 20-year-old Alejandro, This is unplanned. I know I didn't say I was going to ask this, but that's what I do.
Yep, we know.
What part of you, like what version of Vidi or Alejandro or Brandon are you most proud of? Like younger you, like what time?
Like in general or like a particular event?
Como quieras, whatever you want. Like, I'm trying to think too.
I feel like my current self.
Your current self.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say my current self. Why? Because I'm living by myself right now too. And when I first moved out, which is another part that I feel like has helped me a lot, is when I moved out of my house without being married or having kids. And I lived by myself for about a year. And then after that, I started living with roommates. So I've been living with roommates for a good amount of time. And then recently I was like, I need to live by myself again. And just living by myself, owning my businesses, and just managing life, you know, and having my dog, Bodhi, and I think just my current self. Because all those parts of me in the past have led me here. So like, I'm proud of all of those parts, but the most part is my current self. I'm part of myself right now.
I love that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. ¿Y ustedes?
For me, I think it's more in my past. For me, for those of you that know me, that are listening, and for all of you, you all know kind of, you know, the way my mind works. And, you know, growing up, I didn't always have certain opportunities there, but what I was really good at was creating opportunity. So if no opportunity was there, I was going to create something in order for, you know, something to, I can go in a certain way. And I think that there was a lot of fear in the unknown. I grew up in a household where it was always told, you got to find stability, you got to do these certain types of things. And for me, creating opportunity meant like instability. It meant the unknown. And I was so proud of myself being able to sit with that fear in order to get to certain points where I needed to get in life. You know, as a high schooler, being told like, oh, college isn't for you, why don't you just go to work? Or even in undergrad, oh, grad school's not for you, you just got to find something you're going to do with your bachelor's degree. It's like, well, no, I got to find opportunity and find a path there. And sitting with that fear, I think is something I'm really proud of.
You know, it's, I love what you said earlier when you're like, oh, I'm so proud of that 20-year-old you. It's still ringing in my head. And I want to go to those different ages of myself, of my parts, to really let them know that, so they can hear that from myself, right? I mean, great that you all said it, but for myself, because I think that is, you know, feeling proud of different parts of different seasons of your life or different ages even. But I think that really resonated with me, and different. So now to the present, my present self, I feel very proud of. And I think I have done a lot of my decisions that I've made. A lot of them have been, thankfully, more recently, more of my true self versus other parts maybe deciding for me, if you will. And I think that has been a long journey for me. And it's not that I get it right all the time, but I feel like more and more as I'm getting older, these decisions now are coming from a central core of me. And it's hard to distinguish those parts of myself when they come out, when they don't come out. But I think now I'm getting a little better at it. And so when I hear you say, oh yeah, I'm so proud of that 20-year-old self. Yeah, I very much am proud of that 20-year-old self. You know, I think that was a big pivot in how I viewed myself. And if you want to use like a video game thing, then I unlocked other parts of myself that were able to now develop.
Yeah.
Right. And I've used that, and I've thankfully been able to do this career that I've chosen to be a therapist. And I love it. It's something that I've always, I think, just naturally been good at. And if, you know, I'm making a career of it and I'm earning my livelihood from it, it feels really good. Especially when I don't know if your audience have heard this, if you're in the field or not, but especially when you hear like, oh, if you're going to be a therapist, then you better have another plan to make money because you ain't going to do it that way. Right?
We do hear that a lot.
You hear that so much. Like, oh, and not to say that's about money, but I think that idea, right, just is very limiting,
Yeah.
right? And it's, well, you want to do what you want to do to fulfill that inner part of yourself and be able to make livelihood from it. And I feel so proud that I've been able to do that with help along the way, for sure. But I feel very proud of that.
That's beautiful. I think of, I love that you're all encouraging kind of thinking about your current self and being proud of this version too, and not waiting for the future to then be proud of this version of you. But I think what I will share is that I don't necessarily think a lot about current Kaylee. I think more like whenever I feel scared, I often think about maybe grad school Kaylee. Because whenever I'm feeling scared or whenever I am unsure, I think of her because she was a little badass, you know? Like it was almost like college, like undergrad was so trying for that Kaylee. And then I feel like when I got to grad school, I was like, agárrense que ahí vengo, right? Like grab your seats, I'm coming. Like I just became more daring. I became more... I don't know, like I just went for things. And it was also a season of my life where I was single and I got to know me. You know, I think had been 4 years of being, you know, kind of on my own. You know, I would go home a lot during undergrad. But at that point, I was like, okay, like this is more of me, kind of like you're saying. And whenever in current form, I get scared or I'm like, oh my gosh, can I do this? I always think of her because I'm like, there was so much that Kaylee still didn't know, but she was willing to go for it. So I'm really proud of her. I'm proud of her. But yeah, I am proud of where we're at today too. So, no sé, so much of our stories, right? Like, it's about how we remember it. And I think, you know, to your point, Alejandro, right? Like it's special to have somebody else say it, but also it's important for us to say it ourselves. Yeah. And so for the listeners, it's like when was the last time you thanked yourself? Right? Like Snoop Dogg said, right? Last but not least, I want to thank myself, you know?
Thank me.
I want to thank me, you know? And so it's like, if you haven't, what parts of you are you ready to thank, right? Because I also think with therapy, there may be also parts of ourselves that we are mad at or we haven't forgiven or we're ashamed of, right? But I think, you know, it's like you work through the years, right? Like what parts of you are you ready to say thank you to? What parts of you are you ready to forgive? What parts of you are you ready to hug? Whatever, right? But it doesn't have to be all at once, but just thinking today, what parts of me am I thankful for?
Definitely grad school also comes up for me.
See?
Yeah. It was a really tough time. I was in a relationship. Interesting enough, I was in a relationship during grad school, but it was because of him that I was in grad school, actually. If it wasn't for like his influence and his father's influence, that his father was the only person I knew in my environment, in my support system, that had a master's degree. Nobody in my family does. And his father did. And he was a big advocate, obviously, for continuing my education. And the relationship I was at that point, she definitely went for it, even though she had no idea what she was doing. But the partner I had at that point and his family were very, very supportive. Yeah. So that support system really helped me at that point, and I felt supported, felt seen, heard, and everything. So yeah, definitely helped me grow. Yeah.
One thing that Vidi and I are both doing right now, as both of you know, is we're teaching, right? We're teaching social workers, grad students. And part of the reason why I took on this was, yes, because I wanted to support students, I think it was such a tough time in my life, right? That I wanted to be able to offer a different approach, a different support for students. But I think the part of me that wanted to grow was also this like perfectionist in me of like, things don't always go as planned. We're navigating people, we're navigating a classroom. And so as much as I want to plan, somebody might have a lot to say. And so there goes my plan for the day, or I don't know. And I think that this version of me is really aware of the areas of growth that I need. And so I am proud of myself for doing that right now, for kind of taking on this challenge, knowing I would enjoy parts of it and I would be scared of others. I think my future self will be proud of current Kaylee for doing this too. Yeah.
I think oftentimes when we think about like being proud, like the word of like success comes to my mind
Yeah.
of like, oh, like once we reach this milestone, then, you know, I'll be successful, I'll feel good. But if we measure it backwards, that's kind of like what we're doing today, like how much power that holds, of like looking how far we've come and the growth that has come in it. That's why we're all successful, not for what we have, but how far we have come in a lot of ways, which is really cool.
The other part that has helped me grow throughout the years, and I think also family has been a big part of this, is I've experienced a lot of loss in my family. And I just feel like part of these losses has gone through so much intergenerational trauma with it too, and it's very complex. I've lost a lot of family members this month in the month of October, but obviously a couple years apart. But I think losses, multiple losses in my family, in my maternal side, my grandpa, my uncle, and a cousin, and another uncle, very similar dates in this month of October. And overall, obviously different reasons, but their losses and the grief that you go through when you experience a loved one passing away is just unexplainable. And there's so much stages to grief, right? And those stages are not linear and they happen whenever they happen, and they come in waves. And sometimes you don't even understand how it was triggered or why it's here today or whatever. But one of the stages is anger. And I have a cousin that passed away last year in September. And as an adult experiencing loss, then as a child has been very different for me. And this most recent loss that I experienced, the emotion of anger had been very new to me. Feeling very angry at just the situation, right? Not just the reasons, his addiction, and the family dynamics and everything that comes with, has definitely changed our family, has definitely changed me, has made me think about different parts of my life, relationships, and there's so much growth and healing, deep healing that happens when you experience grief and loss. So definitely loss in general, I think, definitely changes you and you grow very deep. There's a deepness to it. So,
Vidi, thank you.
yeah.
You know, one of the, as you were sharing about anger, I think for the listeners and for you guys, I don't know how much you both know, I feel like my different types of healings have really been opened up through Vidi. Like you have been a guide in that. And I think of, when you said anger, I thought of like the breath work that we did together at some point. And one of the thoughts was that when we were in this like breath work group, it was all women, and they talked about how for women, and of course this is general, right? But like for women, we often feel like we're not allowed to be angry, or we have to be silent in our anger. And so I don't know, I'm just like curious about even like that anger that you experience, but also like, Why do we feel like we're not allowed to be angry? And I think for me, I think it's a strength, but also it's probably a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I have learned to, whenever there's a shitty situation, often turn it into like, how can I be grateful for this? How is this a lesson? But sometimes things just suck, you know, and like sometimes there aren't silver linings. It's just like an awful thing happened and I'm upset at this, but allowing ourselves to be angry. And I don't know how much of that is like genders, but I don't know. It just made me think about our breath work. And in that, women often don't feel like they're allowed to be angry. And I don't know. Did you scream? What'd you do, girl?
Well, breath work is definitely a big modality that I practice, and it helps me access that emotion.
Yeah.
And allowing myself to feel it. We don't allow ourselves to feel it, to take that space up, right? Anger, I feel like anger has such like a negative connotation, like, and it's okay to feel angry and allowing yourself to feel it, that it's okay to be angry and also whatever other emotion, right? Even going through grief, like having sad moments, but also having happy moments and having those coexisting emotions and allowing myself to have capacity to feel that too. And to be there and just to let that be there is difficult. So,
You know, anger is that's why I love that movie Inside Out, y'all, if you haven't seen it. But
yeah,
such a great
especially the
movie.
second one.
Yeah, the second one is great too. But yeah, anger is such it gets a bad rap. It gets a bad rap. And, you know, speaking about the gendered position, it's interesting because you all know, but I work with, I specialize working with men in therapy, and we talk about anger all the time. And for men, you know, socially, it's easier to be angry.
SES.
Like it's easier, like growing up in a traditional Mexican household, like anger is like, you know, it's like peanut butter and jelly, right? It's like, you know,
Peanut butter jelly.
and not in an abusive way necessarily, right? But just like, it's like you
Yeah.
get angry, you
CCC.
yell, like, you know, it is what it is. You get the angry drunks at the family party, right, or whatever. But at the same time, so it's almost easier, especially for a lot of men, to feel and express what they're feeling as anger, which protects a lot of us men from feeling the more painful things like grief, like sadness, like vulnerability, like feeling alone or fear. And so it's easier to slam a door than maybe actually like admit that, man, this, to your point, this just sucks. There is no silver lining.
Yeah.
There isn't a silver lining. It's just actually, it's just like, it's like grabbing dirt and like, you know, putting it in your fingers and in your hands. It's nasty. It's just like dirt. It's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Anger is a very natural emotion, and it can mask, it can hide, and sometimes hard to access.
It is hard to access. Yeah. Through body, at least for me, through body modalities has really helped me access anger, and giving myself space to feel and to sit with whatever's coming up for me in the moment. But yeah, a lot of women, it's like you got to be woman-like, ladylike. This is not ladylike traits to be angry, right?
It's not demure. What's
It's
it
not
called?
demure.
Whatever.
It's not
Demure,
mindful.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah. So I talk about that in sessions with a lot of my women clients. And allowing them to feel angry in session.
SES.
Even somatically, having a vocal release. When do we scream? We don't, but our body needs that release. That body needs that to come out. So how do we do that? We do it somatically in session.
I'm on my road rage.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Low-key, yes.
road rage, you know, kickboxing class, you know, weightlifting, whatever.
Yes, movement,
Yeah.
yes, exercise.
I wonder for, you know, as you were saying, Kaylee, like sometimes with anger, it's like you have to repress it almost at times. I wonder if there's like this notion where it's like when anger comes up, at least for yourself, like there's like this notion of I have to or I feel like I have to repress it, because if not, then it's a burden to other people. And other people almost inflict that on others of like, oh, you're sad, let's kind of repress it because it's a burden for me to have to console or whatever it should be. Versus for men, it's like, no, there's only two emotions, either happy or mad. Like those are the only two emotions that are socially acceptable in some ways.
I didn't know I was going to therapy today.
Just four therapists,
Yeah.
four therapists hanging out together. That's all.
Anyway, yeah, you know, I think so. You know, in my family, I feel like, yeah, I think it's the way that I'm described. You know, I'm the positive one, the happy one. So I think when, I don't know, I think along the years though, I have gotten, my family will tell you, you know, I've gotten more comfortable allowing irritability or other emotions to come along. But it does come for me at this point with a lot of guilt, because I feel at times like, oh man, like I allowed my irritability or my anger or my upset to show, and that must have made this person feel this way, and I feel crappy about that. But I mean, sometimes it's warranted, you know, like sometimes I'm annoyed for a very valid reason. And so it is a learning process. And like you're saying, VD, I think it's one thing sometimes for us as therapists to support our clients, right? Like sometimes I'll hear things with my clients and I'm like, I'm so angry listening to these things that they're sharing, right? And like, how dare this person do this to you? Let me go see where they're at. No, but but it's a different thing to hold that same level of intensity of anger for yourself. So it's a practice, but yes, therapist, it's true. You got me. Yeah.
How has anger helped us grow? How has anger helped? Because we're talking about, you know, this episode really about what has helped us evolve and grow. And we can look to a lot of external factors, right? Like Vita, you were sharing with us grief, loss, traveling, you know, difficult, you know, experiences of resiliency. And there are these things too internally, right? Like our emotions that we all have.
Yeah.
I reference the movie Inside Out because it's real, guys. And since we're talking about anger, like, yeah, that's a question I'll ask to all of you. How has anger specifically helped you grow and evolve?
Anger has been one of my I don't want to say top, but it's like it's one of my significant forms of motivation. Because when I'm angry, I realize instead of taking it out on, you know, yelling, I'm not a yeller by nature, like that's just not who I am, but like I can transform it into motivation and drive in order to get things done that maybe I've been putting off, or like, oh, I'll eventually get to it. It literally lights a fire under my rear end. And I will become hyper focused and just inspired to do something. And whether that's healthy or not, like it works for me, and maybe it might not work for all, but that's how I use my anger.
Are you angry a lot then? Because you stay motivated, homie. Like, are you always angry?
That's my secret.
You stay motivated over there. He stays angry is what I'm hearing.
I love that. You stay motivated.
I stay angry because I stay motivated.
And I pick myself.
That's funny.
I don't know.
How about for you guys though?
Yeah.
You know, when I look at anger,
I'm like, I'm
sorry.
trying to think.
All
I don't know.
right, well, I'll jump in then.
No, go ahead.
When I look at anger, it's something that was a familiar emotion growing up, and like in my community, in my culture, my family, it was it was familiar. And yeah, it could be very scary for sure. But how it's helped me grow, I think it's now I'm going to therapy and all that lovely stuff, right? On our journeys, anger helps me. It's the biggest alarm bell for me to know that something's not aligning for me, where I'm either feeling betrayed, trespassed, not reciprocated, maybe not attuned to, not listened, where something receiving or viewing is not aligned with kind of myself. What I deem as just, what I deem as right, what I deem as socially equitable. What I, and I can go on and on, but anything that just doesn't jive with me, when I notice I'm feeling angry, it's usually because something is happening that maybe I haven't actually like realized yet, but it's compromising parts of myself. So my anger part is reminding me, hey, there's something that we are not okay with. And until we address this, I'm going to keep reminding you. And so Alejandro, you get up and you figure it out. And you address, because I'm not going to continue I'm not going to continue co-signing this. So I think that's how anger really has helped me kind of figure out, oh yeah, that's right. So
It's constructive for you, right?
all of our parts are, I would say, yeah.
Parts work over here.
I know.
Sorry, I love
parts work.
Yeah.
Y'all, we're taking you to therapy in this session.
Parts work for sure. I resonate with the not aligning part for sure. When it's something's like bothering me, that anger part comes up, and also it something I'm not expressing either. Going back to communication for me is, am I having a level of resentment towards this person because I haven't communicated my need, but also I'm angry? Have I communicated it, whatever that is, right? But also just thinking about the alignment as well. I really resonated with that when you said that. And what can I do about it? That's the action part. What can I do about it? Am I gonna express it? Am I gonna sit with it? What am I gonna do? Yeah.
Am I ready to act on it yet?
Yeah.
Right?
Like, yeah, do I need to slow down? Do I need to pause, give myself space before I express it, before I communicate it, before I address it, whatever it is. Yeah.
Or maybe I just need to like sit with it.
Just sit with
And
it, yeah.
not do anything about it. At least not yet.
Yeah, totally.
I'm thinking about before we started our company, I think that was the first time that I really experienced true anger at a workplace. And it was like this silent type of anger for me, because I felt like, and this was my experience, right? Like, I felt like some things, to your point, were not just. I felt like the workers were not, there was not like a deep level of respect and honoring. And for me, that was really frustrating to see. But I do think that was one. And so I think for me, and as you're all talking, I think my anger then turns into anxiety. Yours turns into motivation. So I think I go like angry, and then like that like upsets me, and then I go like into kind of shock of it, and like I'm anxious and like, okay, so what am I gonna do about it? But I think that's one of those, but maybe it's because that's when I connected with you, right? It was one of those moments where I was so upset with, is this real? Like, are we in the mental health world and this is the type of treatment, right? Like, how is this possible? My mom would always say to me, Mija, like, how? I thought that these are mental health professionals. How are they treating you all like this, right? So it was one of those things where it was a deep disappointment. And that deep disappointment was making me very angry, and that anger also made me very anxious, and that anxiety eventually was like, I'm gonna be out of here. And before I could get out of there, Brandon was like, well, do you want to do a business, right? And so I allowed like anger to turn into something positive, but I don't sit with anger a lot. I don't think I've become friends with anger too much. A ver, you're gonna have to teach me, a ver qué, right? But I think it is, I do think it's helped me grow, but I don't think I'm besties with anger yet. Yeah, we gotta be friends at some point. We gotta be friends.
I think you are though.
Yeah.
I mean, because so what I'm hearing is that you used a lot of that urgency, that discomfort from being in that position, and we all know and for all the audience that is in the community mental health field, you all know what we're talking about, I'm sure. But it's so that feeling of just being upset that this is not right, this was not just, this isn't fairness there. Absolutely, that it seems like, at least hearing you've used a lot of that into something productive for you. Whether you use that as fuel, whether you use that as energy, however you want to kind of phrase it, but it seems like that to me, just hearing you share. I don't know.
Thanks, amigo. The only other time that I can think of anger is like when I get annoyed with myself, where I'm like, girl, more excuses? Like, come on, you know? There, I think that it's, I guess, annoyance, anger is similar,
Annoyance, yeah.
right? Like, I'm just like,
Sure.
come on, like, tú puedes, right? So I guess there sometimes that does help, but yeah, you've become friends. I need to get friends there.
I was just watching a movie the other day, and I'm blanking on the title, but like the character in the movie says that like their secret is that like they're always angry at some level, and it's not like I walk around like being like angry and like I like hate the world or anything like that. But it's like this level of
Charge.
hard things will come my way, and I know that I can harness the power of each emotion to their greatest ability to get through it. My wedding day, as an example, my wife says she always say, you better cry when you see me, and
I
you
want
know,
to see your teardrops.
yeah, and she's like, I want to see teardrops. And it was during our first look that my eyes got watery and I started to cry because it was in that moment. There was just like this flood of emotions, but it was like being able to embrace the emotions for what they are something that I feel like my younger self would not have been able to do. But I'm able to actually sit with the emotion in the moment and make that experience that much more special. So I can control my emotions and not my emotions allow them to control me, which has been a huge part of growth as a man and as an adult.
Oh, beautiful. How many people here, raise your hand if you cried during Brandon's vows?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
That
word.
was so good.
Yes.
That was so nice.
Literally
That was-
just
yeah.
like me and Viti were like like this the whole time because it was just so
That
beautiful.
was so good. Both my wife and I were like, oh my god, wow.
Yeah, it was beautiful, right?
We were bawling.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
It's one of the perks of being a therapist. Like you're good with your words, right? So you just gotta put it down on paper.
No, but amigo, I think the thing with you is you're not necessarily someone who jumps in all the time to share. You observe a lot, but I think when you happen to speak, you're very intentional, and I think those words that you shared with your wife are just so profound and so beautiful, and I think it touched everyone's heart. It really
Thank
did.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We definitely felt those. We felt those emotions.
What we chose to name our podcast out of, and this whole platform that we're doing, it's there's so many nuances, right? As we're thinking back how we're prepping for today's podcast, there's just so many things that when I look at it, I can say that have legitimately helped me grow. Like, there's so many things. I would bore the audience if I share everything. But it's like there's so many of these things, and it's hard to prioritize, or if that's the right word, but it's hard to name or label which one was the most significant, or even to do a priority like the top 5 or whatever. Even that I'm struggling just figuring out and sharing it here, because there's been so much that each affected a different part of my life or a different part of myself. And when you string them all together, you're like, oh wow, it's me.
Yeah.
You keep bringing Inside Out up, but like it truly is such a beautiful visual, right? Like when you think about the domains of the character, and so I think about like each and every one of us has like each of these values that are our core domains, and then we all have different emotions, and our emotions show up for each of these domains. And yeah, it is really hard to pinpoint this one event, this one situation, because they all tie together. And that's why we were talking about like different parts of us, like 20-year-old Alejandro, right? Like he is a part of who you are now, but he's not the only part that mattered, right? It's just like, it is a hard thing to do, but I don't know. I feel like essentially what we're trying to do with today is practice, right? Share with people how do you practice kind of reflecting? How do you practice observing different parts of you? What are the types of questions that you can even ask yourself, right? To get to a space of what are the things that have helped me grow? What are the things that have changed me?
Great questions.
I think so. We came up with them, girl. I think so. Yeah.
And I think that's something that we leave our listeners with, of
Yeah.
like being able to really do that inward type work of looking inside and thinking about what really contributed you to who you are today. So what helped you grow in a lot of different ways. Because on the day-to-day hustle, we can list all the extrinsic things real clearly, and we can see the outcomes of those things, but the internal things are harder to see. So spoken as a true therapist, right? Like being able to look inward. And that's the best way that you can understand yourself and understand your external world.
You know what came up as you were sharing that is that I think, at least for me, I don't know how you all experience therapy, but I think even for me as a therapist, it was so scary to, it's scary to begin therapy. Even though like I'm a therapist and I know what goes on, and I know like it's not like the monsters are coming out. Like I know them already, right? Like it's like I don't got to share my monsters if I don't want to, But I think that it's such a powerful resource, to do therapy. And I think it's so important because it's just a space. And sometimes like I remember going to therapy and being like, I don't really got a whole lot. And then before you know it, I'm like crying in therapy or something, And so I just think that it's just taking space to be able to reflect. And I think my favorite part as a therapist, right, being on the other side, is supporting people hear themselves, right? Supporting them hear themselves, their journeys, because I think it's really the power of how we tell a story. And sometimes a lot of the work, right, it's like we're challenging people of like, wait, hold on, is that really accurate? Because I think even for ourselves, maybe we don't do that. But I'll say, everybody, I'm not just saying it because I'm a therapist, I'm saying it as a person, like therapy is powerful.
It is. It sure is. And it's definitely scary. Oh my God. When I was in grad school, and so I started my grad program, and my grad school I thought was awesome in the sense that it forced us, before we graduate, we had to have X number of hours in individual therapy in order to graduate.
Amazing.
So that was my first time in therapy. I had done other like little stints of like group therapy and stuff like that in undergrad, like things like that. But it was different there. It was much more, I don't know, more loose, more like, it felt like more like group project more than therapy. I mean, it was still effective, don't get me wrong, I loved it. So starting individual therapy in undergrad, in grad school, I was like, oh, wow. And then I remember I was talking to my high school friend about it. And then I think he made that comment like, oh, yeah, I guess if you want to be a coach, you got to be a player first. I'm like, yes, brilliant. And that's always stuck to me. And I love what you said, Brandon, about reflective in the work inside. To the question, right, of how do we, like for our audience, how do we get to that point of what questions we can ask ourselves to help us grow and evolve? And that reflective work, it's a big one. And I would say also our journey, our internal journey with what happens to us externally. How we process our internal journey as we're facing the external stressors and life events. And to get insight on our internal journey, I think, is the work. And it's a hard journey to be on, but being more than an observer, but being a participant in your internal journey, I think that's how we help ourselves evolve.
It's beautiful. The way you just explained that. As a professor, I always talk about being the client first, because in my grad school program, they didn't mandated, or it's not required. It's not required to do any hours for LCSWs. So not even like programs really pay for our therapy sessions, right? But I think that it should be a requirement that therapists should be going through therapy during grad school. Actually, now that I'm teaching and I see
it's heavy, like everything that's going on and that you're learning about, it's heavy.
Yes, right? And it brings a lot of your own internal, and you have to hold space for it. You have to make space for it. And when you're in grad school, you're not gonna, most of those students are not giving space for any of that. So I think it's very powerful. Yeah, you got to be the player before you're the coach.
Yeah.
I like that analogy.
that.
I'm gonna steal that from you.
Someone trademarked that. Watch out.
What a powerful conversation today. Today's episode.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you all for just sharing. I feel like I learned so much about all of you too. And thank you for everybody that tuned in. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe, rate it, comment, share it. And thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing at me?
Rate it.
Yeah, she was laughing at the flies. She was like, "Five stars."
Bye, 5, 5.
5.